What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live edition of the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. We have a lot to discuss today going into the Super Bowl. There's plenty of buzz out there surrounding Myles, Garrett, and Kupp, and the Broncos have been mentioned as candidates and destinations for both of those trades. We're also going to talk about the Kiper big board that came out after the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. So an update, a look at some draft targets for Denver with pick number 20. A lot of ground to cover as always, but I do love to start the show off by getting you guys involved in the chat. So shout out your city for me down below while we let everyone click on the notification to join our live show. We'll jump into our first segment in just a few minutes here. But where is everyone watching from? As I have Trent in the chat. What's going on, dude? Nathaniel's watching from Pueblo, Colorado. Aiden is up in Fort Collins. We've got someone that I can't really pronounce in Phoenix. Gerald, shout out from an American living in Germany. Mr. Nobles, thank you for tuning in all the way from Deutschland. Trent is in St. George, Utah. Tyman the Buckeye watching from the Buckeye State. Dylan Williams in Colorado Springs. Over 50 of you watching right from the jump. Appreciate it, everyone. Joseph is in Modesto, California. Don is watching from Miami, Florida. Libby's in Indiana. Jeremiah tuning in from Kentucky. Cody is in Dodge City, Kansas. Richard watching from Cleveland. So continue to shout out your city in the chat and make sure to like the video as well. That way we can make our channel the biggest Broncos YouTube channel available. Greatly appreciate everyone who supports us here at the Broncos Breakdown. Now, really quickly, a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has this awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I love about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's show is also made possible thanks to Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players. Prize Picks now offers Venmo and MasterCard for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this season. So go ahead and download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I put all this information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. We got the big game coming up, so with Prize Picks, you can get Patrick Mahomes' passing yards at 0.5. Just take the more on that, and you're halfway there. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So, where were we? That's right. We were talking about some of the trade rumors out there. 2 names that have surfaced over the last 24 hours, Myles Garrett and Kupp. So let's discuss who the Broncos could potentially land in a trade, whether it's the Brown star pass rusher or it's the Rams wide receiver. Let's talk about that right now before we get into our first segment on today's live show, because both of these players, Garrett and Kupp, are very esteemed guys. 2023 Defensive Player of the Year, 2021 Triple Crown winner. Both have very different pros and cons as a trade target. Garrett would cost you an arm and a leg. Literally. I mean, he is going to go for a first, a second, a third, combination of first, second, third round draft picks. TBD exactly, but that's a rough idea. Cooper Kupp, on the other hand, I think the Rams are closer to releasing him than trading him. They're not going to hold on to that contract. He's got a ginormous cap hit coming up for this year. 3 straight seasons of injury-plagued years. They are looking to build young and go with Puka Nacua as the number 1 guy, moving on from the old guard. I would pursue Cooper Kupp before I went after Myles Garrett. If I were Denver, he's going to cost you way less. And for crying out loud, Denver does not need a number 1 pass rusher. I'm not trying to say Garrett would be a bad trade investment. He's a stud. He's Myles freaking Garrett. But you have a very good pass rush. That's all coming back for next year. I would rather see investments made in the offense because the defense, to me, was not the biggest issue with this team. The offense failed to score points in a lot of the big games. The Bills game in the playoffs. The Ravens game in the regular season. The Chiefs in the second half. I'm not saying the defense was perfect all 18 games they played this year, but I feel like the offense should have a bigger priority this offseason compared to the defense. So who you got down below when it comes to the Super Bowl coming up too? Chiefs, Eagles. I'm starting to begin my shift towards the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is what I want versus what I think. I want the Eagles to win. We all want the Eagles to win. No one wants to see Kansas City three-peat. I feel kind of dumb picking against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I feel like the Eagles, and they had a great team when they faced off against KC a few years ago, and 10-point lead at the half quickly went away. But I like the Eagles this year. Their offensive line, their ground game, their ability to run the football at will. I'm leaning Philly, and I'm leaning Philly not just from a heart perspective, but from a mind perspective as well. Ooh, hiccups as well. So, who do you have for the big game? Chiefs or Eagles? Libby is taking the Eagles. Joseph is taking Philly. Aiden would prefer a meteor strikes New Orleans. Philadelphia, screw the Chiefs. How about the Chiefs, by the way, not the Chiefs, but the NFL having to answer for, so is the NFL rigged? We've never gotten, I think, that blatant of a question before. And the league, promptly shoots it down going, it's preposterous. It's not as preposterous as they made it seem like because their reasoning was we have all these different officiating crews, no officiating crew referees, the same team twice. We're not saying every single ref is rigged, but we just saw one of the most notable MLB umpires get fired because he had a joint gambling account with someone who was betting on games that he was umpiring. So you don't need every single ref to be corrupt, but I think it's naive to go, no, there's no way a single one of them could be in bed with all the gambling that the league has gotten in bed with. We've seen it in the NBA. We might have seen it now just in the MLB. Why is the NFL off limits? We have a mailbag coming up at the end of today's live show, so get your questions in right now. Use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, you skip the line, and we guarantee your question, your idea, or your take gets on screen for all of our viewers to see. So, if you enjoy what we do here and want to be a part of the show, get your questions in right now by using hashtag Broncos somewhere in your message in the chat or super chatting. Now, coming up on today's episode, I have rounded up the latest news and rumors pertaining to your Denver Broncos. I also want to look at Mel Kiper's big board coming out of the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, because when you're picking 20th, you're in a weird spot. When you're picking 10th, you have plan A, you have plan B. If it gets to plan C, then your plan A and plan B were never realistic. When you're picking 20, you're in that spot of, we can have a plan A, B, and C, but we may not get all 3 guys. We may not have any of those 3 guys available when we're on the clock at 20. Whereas if you pick like 28th, you don't have any plans. You just got to wait and see who falls to you. There's a couple of guys you might like, but you're the 28th team to pick. You can't be too picky. Whereas 20, you're kind of right with 1 foot in the pond of we can be a little picky and 1 foot in the pond of we have to wait and see. So I really think that this draft is important for everyone to do a lot of research on these top guys. And if you don't want to do the research, that's fine. That's my job. I'll tell you what research I came up with. So let's get this show on the road. We have 20 likes. We get to 25 likes. 5 more people hit the thumbs up button, and then we're going to jump into our first segment. Shane, Matthew, I've been asking why Genty and not Omarion Hampton. Shane Gonzalez, if I'm pronouncing the first name correct, use hashtag Broncos, and we can answer that question in our mailbag. I asked to use hashtag Broncos because our software scans the chat for messages with hashtag Broncos. Then it can pull it and put it on screen. Dylan's here. Joshua Durst is here. Aiden's getting a question in. Folksy Prince is getting a question in. Did Folksy Prince change their profile picture from the start of the show to now? I pick up on these things, 25 likes. There we go. That's the magic number I was looking for. Let's get into a live edition of the Broncos Breakdown starting right now. Let's begin today's episode by talking about a trade idea that's not revolving around Myles, Garrett, or Cooper Kupp, but another trade idea that's been tossed out there where a former first-round draft pick ends up with the Denver Broncos and a former first-round draft pick at a major position of need. So that's why I want to begin today's episode off here by talking about Evan Engram, the tight end from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who was mentioned in a Bleacher Report trade idea that sent him from Duval to Denver. Now, unfortunately, Engram did not have a season to remember, although no one from Jacksonville really did last year. He had a labrum injury cut that season short. Former first-round pick by the New York Giants out of Ole Miss, selected by the G-Men. Didn't really live up to expectations in East Rutherford, and then has a revival in Jacksonville as he begins to get his career turned around and the production starts going up. I mean, you can look at what he was doing a few years ago, 4 seasons ago in 2021, before he gets to Jacksonville, and then he has a breakout campaign with the Jags, putting up 766 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then getting all the way up to 963 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2023. And then last year, like everyone in Jacksonville, 365 yards, 1 touchdown, a bad year. I remember he was on my fantasy team, not that anyone cares about my fantasy team, and he got injured in warm-ups, which is the worst time to get injured because you feel like you're ready to roll, and then poof, you got to make a change 10 minutes before kickoff. So this is the Bleacher Report trade idea that was cooked up. It's a hypothetical trade. Denver gets Evan Engram along with a 7th-round draft pick. How nice of them. And the Jags get a 4th-round draft pick. Surface level, I think it's a fair-ish trade. I don't think it's wildly excessive for one team or the other. I think it's probably a little bit too steep. We've seen a lot of veterans get traded and they don't get nearly as much as you think they do because a team will just go, why use a 4th on an older veteran player when I can use it on a rookie at that same position? The plan for Denver should be to draft a tight end. What's tough about this plan is when you're picking 20, you're not guaranteed anyone at that spot. If your plan is Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland and they get dealt or picked right before you, now you got to start putting together plan C, D, E, F, and G, which is why I think if an Evan Engram trade did happen with the Broncos, since they should prioritize the draft for tight end first, given it's a loaded tight end class. I mean, in other years, this trade could make more sense pre-draft. Not a very good tight end class. Let's go with a proven guy. But in this year's draft class, it's a great tight end class. So I would say wait until the draft. See if you get Warren or Loveland at the 20th pick if that's what you want to do. If you don't get them, then I'd say trade for Evan Engram before day 2 of the draft. But I don't think this is something you have to rush to pre-draft. Now I'll turn it over to you. Would you draft Evan Engram? Would you trade for Evan Engram? Give me a yes or no in the comment section. I want to hear from all of you guys watching down below. I say wait and see if you can get the guy you're targeting at pick number 20 or even round number 2. We see lots of players get dealt mid-draft. Happened last year or 2 years ago. Was it DeAndre Swift when he got traded to the Eagles in the draft, right? Oh, no, they tried to trade him last year or 2 years ago. A.J. Brown, Marquise Hollywood Brown. There's a lot of guys. I thought DeAndre Swift got traded by the Eagles were trying to trade. This will come to me later. Okay, so that's our Evan Engram portion. Moving on here. On to the second segment of today's episode. Zach Wilson. Is he coming back to Denver? There have been a lot of reports about the possibility of the Broncos losing one or both of their unrestricted free agent quarterbacks in Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. So I want to discuss the possibility of Wilson moving on from the Broncos. First, though, I do have to give a special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, on Game Time, you can filter by city, so you can see what's going on in Denver, whether it's an Avs game or a Nuggets game. So do yourself a favor right now and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So getting back to Zach Wilson. Sorry, I got a little flushed in my head for a moment. Wilson, a free agent, might be on his way out after 1 year with the Broncos, who was acquired in a trade after the NFL draft last year. I thought he looked really good in the preseason for what national expectations were, given how he played in New York with the Jets. And he might feel like after one season of Sean Payton rehab, he's ready to roll. Here's what Chris Thomason wrote on Zach Wilson recently. Wilson, who was the third stringer and wasn't active for any games, seems more likely to move on since he is just 25, and another team might consider him an intriguing player they can continue to develop. I think in Zach Wilson's best interest, he should stay another year with Sean Payton. If he is going somewhere else to just be a backup, the question should become not about the quarterback I'm backing up, but the coach I'm learning from. And my suspicion is there's not a long list of coaches where he's going to learn more from than Sean Payton while sitting as a backup. I'm sure there's a sense of urgency and impatience to kick in and go play somewhere else, and you know that's not going to happen with Bo Nix above you on the depth chart. But I think it's in his best interest to do one more year of Sean Payton rehab, really improve his image, especially if he's the backup. That means he can start pretty much every single preseason game, and he can really put out some good tape. And then next year, that would be a better offseason after 2 years in Denver, 2 preseasons with Sean Payton and whatnot, and he might get a bigger contract at that point. Then whereas this year, he's not going to be viewed as a top 3, top 5 free agent quarterback in my eyes. Before we get to the third and final segment of today's show, make sure you follow us, though, for free agency news and rumors. That is a little over a month away, so subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 32,500 subscribers, so we'd greatly appreciate it if you could scroll on down and click that sub button. Switching gears here, from Zach Wilson, we go to, unfortunately, some bad news, and that is some more personnel losses. Broncos front office, coaching staff, the entire organization has been stripped down in a lot of ways. We got this earlier on February 4th from Mike Kliss saying, per source, the Broncos are losing do everything administrator Mark Thews to Raiders. To show what Broncos felt about Thews, he was hired as Josh McDaniels' right-hand man in 2009. Cool story about this, by the way. Kliss did an awesome article on it. Was McDaniels and Thews were high school teammates in football, and he was working at like some market company, some market agency, something like that. And all of a sudden, his old buddy Josh McDaniels gets the job in Denver, and what does he do? He hires his old wide receiver partner from their days in Canton, Ohio. But he's been with the Broncos for well over a decade, closing in on 2 decades compared to just 1 decade. And all of a sudden, after 1 season of playoff success and the Broncos making the playoffs for the first time and in the second longest playoff drought in the NFL, everyone wants a slice of the Broncos. So he is reuniting with Spytek, who is the new Raiders GM, who used to be a Broncos scout. I'm sure it's a bit of a upgrade, promotion, a pay raise. I doubt he would just make the move laterally after all the success they're having in Denver right now and he's having. So, best of luck to him. I wish him nothing but the best, and it definitely stinks to see more people that Sean Payton highly covets and builds around moving on to not greener pastures, but moving up the ladder a little bit, because these are important people that Payton has to try and replace. Assistant GM, that's something George Payton has to work on now. This executive we just talked about, Mark Thews, and then David Shaw going to the Detroit Lions, John Morton going to the Lions to be their offensive coordinator, Declan Doyle going to the Bears to be their offensive coordinator. He fired Ben Kodwika, assistant special teams coordinator, Chris Banjo going to the Jets to be their special teams coordinator. Sean Payton fired inside linebackers coach Greg Minutsky. So a lot of key coaches and personnel members moving on to different areas in the league. And my key takeaway is this is not something to panic over. This is a sign that you are doing things the right way. When so many other teams look at your franchise as a breeding ground of success for coaches and for front office members, you have the right people in place at the top. And we have seen so many examples of the Patriots and the Chiefs just get completely stripped apart. The Eagles, they lose both their offense and defensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, and what's-his-face in Arizona, Jonathan Gannon. And what do? They replace them, and a few short years later, they are right back in the Super Bowl. So this might look as like a bad thing. It's not great for Sean and George Payton, but overall it's a sign of this is a healthy franchise because other teams keep wanting to come here and take their rising pieces. When it comes to the Super Bowl, who do you got? Chiefs or Eagles? Let me know in the comment section below who you think is going to win on Sunday. All right. I saw we had a super chat fly in, so we'll check out that super, and then we can get into our second segment, which is all about Mel Kiper Big Board and who the Broncos could be targeting with that 20th overall pick. Cody W. Need a wide receiver, tight end, running back in the draft, safety, middle linebacker, maybe tight end in free agency. Cody, you're not wrong, but I do think it's important that you include a free agency because often we forget about free agency when looking at the draft because so many of these team needs are going to be filled in free agency. And by the time we get to the draft, you have a much clearer picture as to what holes need to be filled next. So if the Broncos go out and make a splash running back trade, they're probably not going running back in the draft anymore. But I don't disagree with going with tight end, running back in the draft just to find some younger players at those positions. Wide receiver is always a fine position to dabble in the draft if you have enough picks. It's a cornerstone spot, so you can never have enough cornerstone pieces taken every single year because of how important those positions are in case injuries happen and you need some quality depth. As for middle linebacker and tight end and free agency, I would like to see them bring back Cody Barton. I thought he played really well. It's not just down the stretch, but for his second half of the season, like for 2/3 of the season, really. Remember, Alex Singleton tore his ACL in week 3 in Tampa Bay, played the whole game on it, and it was not discovered until halfway through the week going into week 4 against the Jets, and Cody Barton stepped in from there, and the rest was history. Had that great game against New Orleans, so I'm willing to bring back Barton and put him in that larger role than maybe initially anticipated before the 2024 season. Cody, greatly appreciate your super chat and question. If you have a question at all, use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. If you Super Chat like Cody, you'll get on screen for all of our 100 plus viewers to see. Thank you to everyone who's hanging out with us right now and tuning in. Make sure to like the video if you have not already. We're at 47 likes. Once we get to 50 likes, we will look at Mel Kiper's latest big board coming out of the first calendar mark of the pre-draft process, the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. So a lot to discuss in the next portion of today's live episode, but we need 3 more likes to get to 50 likes, and then we will check out who Kiper likes the most in this draft class. Number 1 draft pick for the Broncos is Ashton Jeanty. To me, it's just the best player. Now, who knows if he's going to be there? Smokescreen season. But if you're asking me if I'm the GM, and I do love to differentiate what I would do versus what I think the team will do. What I would do is take Ashton Jeanty, if available. Some people are going to get really passionate, like they have a crystal ball and they know what's going to happen. Guys, the NFL draft is an absolute crapshoot. It's like people don't remember that every single year, players mysteriously fall and no one knows why it happens. I would not rule out the possibility of Jeanty being there at 20. It's not a 0% chance. It's a 0% chance that Abdul Carter is there at pick number 20, but there's not a 0% chance that Jeanty is there. Yep. So we have 52 likes, and now we can get into our next segment, which is Mel Kiper's latest big board. What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. On today's episode, I want to share with you guys Mel Kiper's latest big board coming out of the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, going into the NFL Combine, which, believe it or not, is just 2.5 short weeks away from now. So the pre-draft process is off and running. So let's get right into it, starting with his top 5 players. This is not a mock draft. It's just his top 25 guys. And nothing changed from his first big board in January to his big board in February. He's got the same top 5 guys at the same spot. So nothing changes here, but we start to see a change at Ashton Jeanty at number 6. He moved up from 9 to 6, 3 spots. We saw a few other guys stay at the same spot. Will Johnson was the corresponding move. He fell from 6 to 9. Don't ask me what Mel Kiper saw from Jeanty or Will Johnson in the last couple of weeks, since neither one has played a football game. I don't know if Kiper just watched a little bit more film or just decided to shake things up to keep things nice and fresh. But 2 guys right here that I could see Denver having a lot of interest in: Ashton Jeanty and Tyler Warren. Those are, in my eyes, your dream draft targets. Jeanty, I don't think I need to go into too much detail when I say he is as close to a generational back as we have seen in quite some time. Like, if you're just thinking about recent top backs, it's Jeanty, it's Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette. He's in that tier of expectations. He runs with power. He's got incredible balance. He truck sticks people over, hits them, knocks them over. If you're looking for a con, he has taken a little bit of a beating. 750 carries in 3 seasons. That's a lot of wear and tear before you even get to the NFL. He had well over 300 carries this past year. Teams do monitor the amount of touches that running backs get in college because they don't want them to get to the NFL and all of a sudden be a little bit out of gas before they even take a snap with their new team. So that is something to at least not factor in, but just store way back here. As for Tyler Warren, 6'6", 261 pounds, so really good size altogether. You think 6'6", 261, that's like an NFL defensive end. But he runs like a wide receiver. But he's blocking guys who are the same size as him. Now, he's not a great run blocker despite the size, but that's something I could see NFL coaches improving upon. But he's got the versatility. You can put him anywhere you want on the field. And he's got those joker traits. We did a whole video about Sean Payton looking for his next joker. Someone who's got yards after contact, yards after the catch ability, and is very versatile and scheme-friendly and can be a plug-and-play person for a coach. To me, Jeanty and Warren, they are plan A and 1A. To each their own. If you want Denver to go after a tight end first and then running back next or vice versa, that's fine. I'm not going to die on that hill because both players are incredible prospects where I won't be upset if they were to pick one over the other. My personal preference would be Genty, but I'm not the GM, so who cares? I think that Sean and George Payton's preference would be Tyler Warren. So if you had to pick one of these two guys, who would it be? Genty or Warren? Scroll on down to the comment section and let me know which player you think would be the better pick at number 20. Let's get back to our big board from Kiper, though. So after 1 through 10, there are only two guys that I could see the Broncos having a good chance at landing, and those are the two players. As for 11 through 15, we've got Will Campbell coming up from LSU. He was 11 on the last big board. We get a big jump here. Shamir Stewart, defensive end out of Texas A&M, going all the way up to 12 after a very impressive Senior Bowl performance. Colston Loveland is up next, the tight end from Michigan. He rose up 2 spots as well, going from 15 to 13 in Kiper's big board. Let's pause right here and talk about Colston Loveland because Campbell's not the move for Denver, and I don't think Stewart is as well with all the depth they already have at the pass rusher spot. However, Loveland might be your consolation prize if you don't land Tyler Warren. I will not be surprised if some scouts and GMs, by the time April gets here, prefer Loveland over Warren because he is like a Sam Laporta type tight end. He's got such a great receiving ability. Not that Warren doesn't, but Loveland's separation ability for 6'5", 245 pounds, that just screams red zone target from your size, but also someone who can use from the 20-yard line to the 20-yard line in the middle of the field. He did not have a great quarterback working with him this past year at Michigan, and that resulted in him not getting a bunch of stats and a bunch of yards. He also missed a little bit of time with a shoulder injury as well. But Loveland is a great receiving threat for anyone looking for a tight end. And I think this could be someone that Denver kind of falls in love with a little bit because they really want to find that yak guy, yards after catch. And Loveland had a great ability of turning upfield with the Wolverines this past season. So that's one name to keep an eye on if you are the Broncos searching for a tight end, and Tyler Warren gets taken a few spots before you. And you can look at his stats throughout his career at Michigan. Getting back to our big board now. Or before we get back to our big board, I'll wrap it up with Colston Loveland, in my eyes, is plan C/D. Genty and Warren are plan A or plan B, and you can switch around the order. I think Loveland is C/D. I'll tell you who the other part of the C/D is. They're later on in Mel Kiper's big board. After Loveland, the next couple of guys here, Kelvin Banks out of Texas. This one does not really apply to Denver. They're not going to go offensive line around one. Michael Williams out of Georgia. That's another option as well, but not really. I mean, let's just be real here. They're not looking for pass rushers. Moving along here, a couple other guys on the big board to watch for. Josh Simmons, no. Mike Green. I like Mike Green a lot. Keep an eye on him. If you want to sound smart in front of your friends, he is a rising popular name, not even ranked on Kiper's previous big board, all the way up to 17. Luther Burden is definitely an option to keep an eye on if Denver wants to go wide receiver. And then finally, at 19, we have Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. So let's discuss Elijah next up on the show. But first, I do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. Basketball season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, for the big game coming up, you can get Patrick Mahomes' passing yards at 0.5. Hate him, we can all agree he's going to get more than 0.5 passing yards. So do yourself a favor right now and download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Where were we? Oh, yes. Arroyo, 6'4", 251 pounds, so prototypical size for an NFL tight end. The knock on Elijah is the lack of availability at the U. He was limited to 11 games over 2022 and 2023, I believe, to a knee injury. However, the Senior Bowl really did him a lot of favors because he shined there. After not being on the field as much in Miami because of knee injuries and other injuries, he really blossomed in front of plenty of GMs and scouts and whatnot. So that was a Senior Bowl where he really made a name for himself, and he went from not even being on Kiper's top 25 to moving all the way up to 19. Last year for the U, 590 yards, 7 touchdowns, 35 grabs altogether. He was a big play machine for Cam Ward, averaging nearly 17 yards a reception. So Elijah is a name to watch for that. If you are looking for a tight end, but you don't want to go tight end in round 1, I think he could be a really good day 2 draft target. I am not completely in bed with him. It sounds weird. Walk that back. I'm not completely in bed with taking Elijah with the 20th overall pick in round 1. The injury concerns are concerning because the hits you take in the college football ranks are nowhere near the hits you're going to take in the NFL. So if you're missing time in college, I'm starting to be concerned that you will miss time in the NFL. It's not a complete, death sentence of, injured in college, crossed off my list. But as a receiver, you take hits in college football, and if you miss time from those hits, imagine the time you're going to miss from the hits you take in the NFL. So I would just wait on him till round number 2 or round number 3. Before we check out the rest of Kiper's mock, help us out by reaching our draft goal, which is 35,000 subscribers here at the Broncos Breakdown. We obviously have a long ways to go, but if you are looking for a go-to Broncos YouTube channel for the NFL Draft, I promise you, there is no other Broncos YouTube channel that will go through all of the targets, the mock drafts, the big boards like we do here at the Broncos Breakdown. So picking up from where we left off on Kiper's big board, up next at number 20 is Malachi Starks, the safety / DB, if you want to put a broad position on him, out of Georgia. He was 16th on his previous big board, and he fell down to 20th on this one. Don't ask me why. Now, good size, 6'1", 205 pounds, a long-time starter for the Bulldog defense. 3 years, he was a 5-star recruit for Kirby Smart. In his career at Athens, he had 6 interceptions, 23 pass breakups, 5.5 tackles for loss. He's got incredible athletic traits. He is versatile. You can line him up in a lot of different spots in that secondary, and he's got the production. So you're not just taking a track star that you hope you can get some good production out of that the college ranks were unable to do. No, he checks a lot of boxes here from an athletic standpoint and from a production standpoint. Personally, I would push safety off until later in the draft. Not that it's not an important position or not a need for Denver, but I think running back and tight end are bigger needs. And those are spots I would prefer to target first in the draft and wait on safety until later in the draft. Justin Simmons, a 3rd-round draft pick. You can find good safeties later in the draft. Speaking of safeties, the next one on Kiper's big board is another safety. It is South Carolina's safety. I won't do the same song and dance I just did for Starks. I did for Nick here. So moving along, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from Ohio State. Tyler Booker, really good guard from Alabama. Denver doesn't need a guard. Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. I should probably do a little bit more research on him, but I'm not quite there yet for him being a realistic draft target. But the 25th player on Kiper's big board, I do think has a great chance of being the pick at number 20. And it is the Ole Miss defensive tackle, Walter Nolan. Overall, pretty solid size, 6'3", 293 pounds, junior who was a big-time recruit out of Texas A&M before transferring to Oxford, Mississippi. The production is what jumps out the most when it comes to Nolan. He has some good physical traits. I'm not saying he's not a, gifted athlete, but when you bring up Walter Nolan to scouts and GMs, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is not his size and speed. Whereas like Shamir Stewart from Texas A&M, that is someone that the first thing that comes out of their mouth is the size and speed. So Nolan's production is what really jumps out to me because we're looking at someone who's closing in on 300 pounds and is still able to rush the quarterback. He had a boatload of sacks his last season for the Rebels, and you just do not find guys with this type of size and this much pass rush production. I mean, you can look at his 2024 numbers with me here. 6.5 sacks, 35 pressures, 14 tackles for loss. Usually the big fellas like this are good tree stumps. You stick them in the middle of the defensive line, they're going to eat up the guard in the center, and they're going to allow your linebacker to get in the backfield. And that's a good, fine role. Vita Vea does that very well for the Buccaneers, although he's got an upper, echelon, upper gear to his game. But there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to know what defensive coordinators love, it's guys that can generate pressure from up the middle. Because you expect your defensive ends to get to the quarterback. And the quarterback does too. But what they don't expect is for someone to come right down the A-gap and knock them over. And Nolan, for that reason alone, and with DJ Jones being a free agent, if Genty and Warren are gone, and if it's between... And if it's between Loveland and I remember I said plan C, plan D, I could see Nolan being the plan D if plan C is Colston Loveland. So for me, there are 4 guys that I have a really close eye on for Denver. And they're in 2 different tiers. Genty and Warren, Loveland and Nolan. So who do you want Denver to draft? Let me know in the comment section below who your number 1 draft target is for the Broncos. We got another super chat that just flew in from, once again, Cody W. Love to see it. So we have another super chat, like I said, that will be in our mailbag as well. The mailbag is next up on the show, so if you have any questions you would like to ask, use hashtag Broncos or super chat, and we'll throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. See, I like, Mark, what you're saying here. Mark, use that idea, put hashtag Broncos on, and we can discuss it on the show. Juwan Johnson, Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green in round number 3. This tight end draft class is so deep that I think from a roster construction standpoint, if you go Genty in round 1 and Harold Fannin in round 3, that might be a better combination than Warren in round 1 and a running back in round 3. Both positions are very deep, so you can't really go wrong with either one, but it's more of like a choose your own flavor. Do you want chocolate or vanilla? Do you want to prioritize running back a little bit more or tight end a little bit more? I personally would prioritize running back a little bit more than tight end. Cody W. I like Dylan Sampson. Oh, Cody, you're talking to the right guy here. 4.340, 22-23 miles per hour in games. The Tennessee Volunteer had a nose for the end zone too. Set the Volunteers' single-season touchdown record last year in Knoxville. I like Dylan Sampson a lot as well. I think he's kind of getting lost in the mix a little bit because his name's not Ashton Genty. And if your name's not Ashton Genty, no one's looking all that closely at you. Not saying the other running backs are bad, but all the spotlight's going to Genty. And as a result, I think teams are going to find really good backs, and everyone wonders, how did he fall to round number 3? Oh, that's the year that Genty was in the draft, and no one paid much attention to any other running backs because why would you when the Heisman runner-up was going to go round 1. So, Cody, I'm with you. I like Dylan Sampson a lot as well. He has some fumbling issues. That definitely will be a big focal point for running back coaches and just coaches in general at the next level. I think he probably projects next as a good – I think there is a lot to his game that can be versatile, not just a goal line back. Despite all the touchdowns he had, there were some long runs, and he's fast, like you said. I'm excited to see how he performs at the Combine. Okay, so we have our mailbag next up. Get those questions in or super chat like Cody. Big shout out to Cody for supporting us here. If you want to get on screen, guaranteed super chat, and we'll throw it on for everyone watching to see. If you're unable to super chat, not a problem. Just use hashtag Broncos in the chat. And producer Dylan, one of the newest members of the Chat Sports family, will pick his favorite questions, and we'll throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. Miller time. Here, take the microphone, because no one can hear you. I feel like everyone's just wondering who I'm talking to right now.
Yeah,
I'm like talking to my imaginary friend.
Producer Reed's here as well.
Yeah.
You know how Howie Roseman brings in all the Georgia players?
Right.
You know, Sean Payton just brings in, or George Payton, both of them, bring in all Tennessee players. How happy would you be?
I'd be pretty happy, yeah. There is a special feeling of when your NFL team takes a player from your college team and you feel like the smartest guy in the room because you know everything there is to know about that player. And you're like, come ask your questions to me. I will tell you everything you need to know about this 4th-round pick right here. Michael with a $5 super. Let's have our mailbag start off with Michael's super chat. And then we will get into the other questions we have. Michael, thank you for your super chat as always. Everyone spam Cody W and Michael in the chat. Show them some love for supporting the channel here. Joe, trade out first for picks. No, not interested in doing that. You just made the playoffs. You've got a couple of holes in this puzzle to fill. I think people sometimes overvalue quantity over quality. Here's an example. Go look at what the Rams got with all the picks when they traded their first overall pick or second overall pick to the Redskins for RG3. They got so many picks. See what those picks turned out to be. You would surely think with all those picks, they got a bunch of good players. Or how about when the Browns traded back with the Eagles so the Eagles could select Carson Wentz? It's not as much as you think. Or even the Bears. They got like Caleb Williams, but that was a future first, and you're not getting a future first out of trading out of the 20th overall pick. All right. We got Jackson. We got a good amount of questions, as long as the software's working. Miller time. Jackson. Oh, Jackson. 1 second. I'm trying to answer this other question right now, and then I'll answer Jackson's question. Okay, Jackson, your question. I'll just answer it right now. Favorite team. So that's a common question, Jackson. When I started this job, I came over from doing small town radio in Evanston, Wyoming, and no knock on that. I had a great time there, but my dream was always to kind of cover and work in the NFL in some capacity. So when I had the opportunity to work at Chat Sports and cover the NFL, and they were like, hey, we need you to cover more than one team, I was not going to say no to that. So to be honest with you, I don't have like a favorite team because I view them as just teams that I cover, and I enjoy trying to bring a blend of like non-bias and also a little bit of bias because I am partial to the teams that I cover. So Jackson, that's not the answer you're probably looking for, but it's not a very like drama-filled answer to begin with. Okay, let's get into our mailbag. Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown Mailbag Edition. I'm answering questions that came in during our live show, which airs every single Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you want to be a part of the next live show to ask your question, tune in Tuesdays, 3 p.m., and we'll throw your question on screen. Our first question comes in via Super Chat from Michael. I would trade for wide receiver Cooper Kupp over Myles Garrett if I were the Broncos. Go Broncos. Michael, I agree. I think there is a lot to like about trading for Myles Garrett. If you're any team, he is the best pass rusher in football. You are getting the best guy at the second most position in football. It's hard to say trading for Myles Garrett would be a bad idea for any team out there. But when you are talking about the team that just led the league in sacks, maybe the priority should be on offense and not so much on defense. So, Michael, I'm in the same boat. I would pursue Kupp, although I don't think you really have to trade for Kupp because my gut tells me the Rams are going to end up releasing him, and you can just wait until March to sign him and not lose any draft picks. Cody W. Need a wide receiver, tight end, running back in the draft, safety, middle linebacker, maybe tight end in free agency. This does serve as a good reminder that while we get so obsessed with mock drafts and people coming at each other's throats over how could you pick that position over that position, by the time free agency is over, we'll have a much clearer picture as to what Denver's needs are. What if in free agency they make a big splash move for a tight end or a running back? Well, they're probably not going to do that with their 20th overall pick. So don't get too obsessed with the position of need for the draft. I'd spend more time learning about the players and be well-versed at all the players, or if you don't want to be well-versed, I'll teach you what to be well-versed in, of the positions of need, because you might discover when the draft gets here, tight end, cross it off the list, they signed 2 guys in free agency. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. Miller time. What are your thoughts on tight end Gunnar Helm, that's the Texas tight end, and wide receiver Savion Williams? I feel both would be great with Sean Payton. Savion Williams, that's the TCU wide receiver, right? I'm going to double check. Yes, okay. I didn't want to put my foot in my mouth here. So, Gunnar Helm and Savion Williams. Williams and there's the other TCU receiver who I'm blanking out right now. Both of them I thought had their stock kind of rise a little bit since the season ended. These are 2 guys that I think could have a lot of, I don't want to say versatility because it's such a buzzword, but versatility more or less. And when you look at Sean Payton's background in New Orleans, he loves tight ends that can do a lot of different things for him. So Gunnar Helm, I think, could be a good fit in that role. Miller time, these are 2 good prospects to watch for. I think closer to rounds 4 and 5 of the draft. How you doing? We got Joey Tribbiani here. Any chance Denver trades for Travis Etienne? Okay, let's talk about the Jags running back then, shall we? Because it's not a very good free agent class at the running back position. Last year, you had Barkley, you had Josh Jacobs, you had all these guys get paid a lot of money. This year, the best running back is probably Aaron Jones. He's 30 years old. I don't think Denver wants to make a long-term investment in him. Whereas Travis Etienne, he is going into year 4 of his career. The Jags or any team that trades for him potentially has to make a decision on his 5th-year option. And we'll look at his stats, and unfortunately, it was not a 2024 to remember, but that was the case for everyone in Jacksonville. But yeah, he had a down year. I mean, I'm not going to try and, play it up than that. He pretty much lost his starting job to Tank Bigsby, who towards the end of the year looked like the better back on that team. I'm still open to trying to recapture what you saw out of him in 2022 and 2023. No, actually, he is not. This is going to 5th-year option. I forgot I missed all of 2021 with that injury before the season started. So forget the 5th-year option part. That's already out of the question here. But getting back to Travis Etienne as a player here. For the right price, yeah, why not? Right? You're moving on from Javonte Williams. I think you were hoping to see a little bit more from highlight reel Jaleel, which was a bummer because I had high expectations for him this past season and didn't quite live up to what I was hoping to see out of him. I'm not willing to make a conclusion on Audric Estime after just 1 year as a rookie, but I think a running back room of Estime, Etienne, and a new rookie could be a pretty good trio for Bo Nix. So I'll turn it over to you now. Be the host. Would you trade for Travis Etienne? Scroll on down. Give me your response in the comment section. Moving on to our next question. Michael, what do you think is the biggest need in free agency? Great question, Michael. Biggest need in free agency, I'm going to look through the lens of what does this free agent class have to offer that the Broncos could be interested in. It's not a very good free agent class at running back. Broncos are interested in that. Not a very good free agent class at tight end. Broncos need some help there. I'm thinking middle linebacker. Whether it's re-signing Cody Barton, whether it is bringing a different linebacker in. I think linebacker could be a position that Denver targets in free agency, whether it's keeping their own guys, like I said, or finding someone external. Safety could be one to watch for. PJ Locke did not look like a starting safety this past season. You're pretty good on the offensive line. I like the receivers, and I know people are going to be banging the drum for T. Higgins or Chris Godwin. My guess is those guys are going to get very big contracts because it's not a very good wide receiver draft class, and thus they'll be overpaid on top of already being overpaid because most free agent signings are overpaid. That's the nature of the biz. You get underpaid on your rookie deal, and then you make up for it on your next contract as long as you played well in your rookie contract. So I would pause the idea of making T. Higgins the 5th highest paid receiver by the Denver Broncos. I like what you have in Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin, Devon Vele. So I'd say linebacker and safety, Michael. Folksy Prince, 410. If you could pick any player for the Broncos to trade for who? If you could pick any player for the Broncos to trade for, who is it? Okay. Ooh, great question. If I'm picking, within some level of realism, because I would love for them to trade for like a tight end probably. Running back, I'd rather go get a younger running back or one in free agency rather than give up a draft pick for one and then give him a new big contract as well. So tight end, Kyle Pitts could be a realistic option to go after. Former 4th overall pick. It didn't work in Atlanta. I think the Falcons are going to be moving on from him. Pitts is that sweet spot of position of need and some level of realism, right? I'm not going to go overboard and just be like, why don't they go get Josh Allen? You know what I mean? So Kyle Pitts, I think, would be my answer for this question. Folksy Prince, I'm sure there's some other names out there that people are going to roast me for in the comment section, but right now I'm just kind of drawing a blank on anyone else that's semi-available at a position of need for Denver. We're going to talk more about the questions you guys have in just a moment, but first, Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Getting back to our mailbag. Next question coming up in just a second here from, drumroll please. It's from Joe. What's going on, Joe? Trade out of first round for picks. No. I do not want to see the Broncos trade out of the 20th overall pick. At least not like pre-draft. The Texans did that last year with the Vikings. I think it's worth sitting at 20 and waiting to see if you can get one of 4 guys that I like a lot for Denver. Tyler Warren, Ashton Genty, Colston Loveland, and Walter Nolan. I blanked on my own 4th guy. If those 4 guys are gone from 20, then we can discuss trade options at that point if someone wants to give you a good amount of picks to move up in the draft. But Pre-draft, I think those are 4 guys worth sitting and waiting for to see if they are there. Demented Tree. Is this what's so funny? Okay. 3 firsts for Travis Kelce to make Taylor suffer. Think there's a chance Travis Kelce plays his last game on Sunday? I mean, if they win, I don't know how much more he has to not just prove. He has nothing to prove anymore, but, go out there and play for. He might feel like he still have some gas left in the tank, but it didn't look like that this past regular season. So maybe he wins, he proposes to Taylor, and he rides off into the sunset. I don't think Travis Kelce is going to play for any other team in his NFL career. Cody W. Wouldn't mind looking at Juwan Johnson. That's the Saints tight end. I'm really liking Oriante Gadsden from Syracuse in the draft. I got to learn more about Gadsden because I'm still going through my prospects. I'm kind of like at guys who are rounds 1 to 2.5. I haven't gotten enough day 3 guys just yet, so bear with me, Cody. As for Juwan Johnson, that's a good tight end target for Denver because they definitely need one with the lack of production they got from their unit as a whole last year, and he's got the familiarities to Sean Payton. Do not rule out Juwan Johnson being one of the first free agent signings by the Broncos in March. Aiden, what do you think is a realistic year that the Broncos could make the Super Bowl and when they could win it? Aiden, fun question. Let's say the level of realism, 2025 is a win a playoff game type of accomplishment season. I think Josh Allen had the similar path, right? Where he did not win a playoff game the first time he went to the playoffs, but the second time. So someone can fact check me. Let's say 2025 is wild card team, win a playoff game. You're the 5 or you're the 6 seed, and you knock off someone on the road, and then unfortunately lose in the divisional round. 2026, year 3 of Bo Nix. That I don't think has to be, but on a level of optimism, that could be a AFC Championship appearance game. Just keep working your way up the ladder a little bit. But let's not settle there, because I feel like usually when you get a little bit of success, the very next year, you go way further than expected. Take like Jalen Hurts, for example. They were the 7th seed under Nick Sirianni their first year, lost to the Buccaneers, Brady and the Bucs, and everyone's like, oh, cute run for the Eagles to close out the season, ended 9-8. The very next year, they are in the Super Bowl. So, or 2 years later? No, the very next year. Yeah. Second year under Sirianni. They're in the Super Bowl and lose to the Chiefs. So, I'll say 2025 is win a playoff game. 2026, realistically, I think they could make the Super Bowl in 2 years. And then winning, I don't know. Sometime, look at Josh Allen. Look how long he's gone without winning one. Look at Joe Burrow. They're better than Bo Nix right now. So I'm not going to say realistically they win one in 4 years because I told Bills fans in 2019, you guys will win one in the next 4 years. That sounds like a pretty good bet. Hasn't happened. Shane Gonzalez. Matt, I want to know your thoughts on getting Omarion Hampton in the first or second round if Genty isn't there. My preferred, my personal running back rankings, Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. That's the name that I like the most out of all the second tier of backs. If tier 1 is Genty by himself, for me it goes Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. But the UNC running back Hampton, he was very productive this past season for the Tar Heels, one of the leading rushers in the country, top 5 if I remember correctly, and he's got a good amount of bruising to him, so I like the violence and the physicality he runs with. I don't think it's a bad option. It's not my preferred option. I would say Caleb Johnson for anyone looking for a back in round 2. Harrison Wiley, what do you think of Ty Robinson in round 4? This is the Nebraska guy, right? The defensive lineman from Lincoln, I think so. I'm going to do a little fact checking myself. Yeah, okay. What do I think of Ty Robinson? I don't have enough research on him myself to give you an informed and accurate opinion. So, Harrison, I'm sorry to let you down. I'll have a better answer for you as we get closer to probably coming out of the combine. That's when I'm going to really be at my peak of having a good grasp of all the prospects from rounds 1 to 4 to 5-ish. And I'm not going to BS you guys. I won't know everything there is to know about guys who go in round 6 and 7. Okay, Harrison, come back to me on this question, and I promise I'll give you a better answer in the future. That's going to do it for us on today's mailbag. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed our free content, all I ask is you like and subscribe, and we will get you guys more content over the next couple of days. All right. I'll answer. Oh, Tim Green is here. Tim, it's great to see you. How about this? DC Viper. What would it cost to trade for a guy like TJ Watt or Myles Garrett? This team still needs an elite pass rusher. Would you send a 22nd first for either? Do they need why is Nick Bonito not enough for you? What more? He scored 2 touchdowns this year. He finished top 5 in sacks, right? In his 3rd season? Can we give these guys a little bit longer of a leash before we just deem you're not good enough? You just gave Jonathan Cooper a nice contract extension. Just because they're not Myles Garrett doesn't mean they are not adequate enough. I think you have a very good pass rush with the current roster makeup. They don't need to feel the need to give up assets that could be used at other positions to improve the overall roster. Put it this way. On a scale of 1 to 100, what do you guys think Denver's pass rush is? 90? They just led the NFL in sacks. Yeah, rating 1 to 100. As a whole, 90 to 95? Let's say you add Myles Garrett. He takes you from 90 to 99. That 9 points you add with Garrett, could you have gotten more points at other positions with the picks you gave up for Myles? My guess is yeah. The 2 firsts you gave up for Myles Garrett, you could use at running back and tight end. And you could raise the overall roster. That's what I think Denver should do. Yeah, it's like a Madden rating. You can boost the offense 15 points, or you can boost the defense 5 points. Not bad to add more to the defense, but the offense is the bigger priority right now. And cheaper. Guillermo, I don't like the idea of trading. I'd rather strengthen the roster through free agency and the draft. Address our needs, tight end, running back, and DT through the draft. Continue to develop our players. I agree. Some GMs prefer trades because you're getting a known commodity, and you're also letting that player know we really want you. So some teams like to operate in trades. Sean Payton has never been afraid to make a trade before. Some GMs are just too afraid to part with draft picks because that's their currency. That's their wallet, And so if they give away all their money, then they don't have anything to lean back on and go, here's what I built with my own 2 hands. I drafted these guys. No, they're putting all their eggs in just a few guys' baskets instead of spreading their chips. It's kind of like it's not really a good example, but if you go to Vegas and you play roulette, you feel really confident that your numbers are going to hit, right? You got your 5 favorite numbers. That's how GMs kind of feel like with their chips at the table. Why go all in on black? When I'm confident, I can hit on multiple. Does that make some kind of sense? When you give all your chips away, you no longer get to spread them around multiple players in the draft. And you think, as a GM, you are God's gift to football, and no one can evaluate college players better than you can. Most GMs were scouts coming up. They feel like they can look at a college player and determine whether or not they'll be any good at the next level. And you take away their draft picks by trading them, they no longer feel like they have that capability of proving their worth. Okay, I think that's going to do it for us on today's live show. We'll end with this question right here. Who you got, Chiefs or Eagles? Let me know down below in the comment section. The next time we'll be live on the channel, it'll be the offseason for everyone. So appreciate everyone for you guys for watching today, and I'll see you all tomorrow.